Thank you so much for staying with us. My guest is Professor Omowumi Iledare, Prof Emeritus in Petroleum Economics, Executive Director, Emmanuel Eboga Foundation in Abuja. He joins me live today from the United States of America. Good afternoon, Prof. It's good morning over there, but it's afternoon here. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining the program. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Tolulope. Good morning, home away from home. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. Let's start with the present state of Nigeria's oil and gas industry, moving from years of structural distortions, of course, towards a more rule-based, value-driven industry. I got all of this. I want to ask you, Prof, you have followed this, always doing write-ups around the segment of this of the Nigerian economy. Are we moving in the right direction in your understanding?
Yes. I think there are three things we can use to gauge the direction we're going. The biggest challenge is whether we can sustain it. We have actually moved, if you look at three things. One, this is a year of consolidation, not a reset year, and we need to pay attention to that. Second, we have moved away from policy uncertainty to institutional experimentation under the PIA. So certainly, we are no longer, to a large extent, import dependent. We are now domestically processing our crude. Not 100% yet, but we're moving in the right direction. We must also agree that, to a large extent, we have moved away from opaque regulation. And yes, we are not there yet, but we are trying to follow rules-based governance. Even though we are slow, but we are moving in the right direction. And then, of course, it seems right now we are no longer crude-centric in our thinking. We are now more conscious of value chain optimization. Yes, but the real question for 2026 is this: whether Nigeria will think more of sustained economic value instead of emphasizing that we are resource-based. So we are doing well, Tolulope. We are doing well.
Prof, I think it's a good way to always start this conversation with you, but to reflect current realities. Recently, there was a transition in the boards of the management of two industry regulators, which you talked about in your last appearance on the program: the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Agency. That's the NMDPRA and the NUPRC. Now, the twin issues of stability, accountability has often been nightmare of operators and investors. With this move by the president, what do you also think this would make of that industry, considering of our expectations, high expectations, Nigeria's oil and gas industry? Are we also in the right direction with that move?
Well, let me commend Mr. President for listening to the cry of some of us that the board of of the authority and the board of the Petroleum Commission are the guardrails to guide management from management distraction. So I commend the president again for appointing the board of NMPC, the board of NUPLC, and the board of the authority. They're very commendable. Better late than never. And that's some of the things that we make the investors a little less weary in terms of risk associated with uncertainty. That's commendable. There's still one more step that the president has to take, and I have continued to plead with him to take it. For certainty, not 100% certainty, because the oil and gas industry's outcome and input are highly stochastic. will find a way to manage them. I still think the president, to put all of this board in line with his policy, he needs an anchor person. I'm not going to dwell on that. So let's see. You may not like the Medi-Pass upstream regulator, but to a large extent, he did his best to align with what the PIA wanted in terms of the upstream petroleum regulation. Like I said last week, let us always look at the position we are given in government as an invitation to serve, and then make sure we build institutions instead of personality cults. Again, I think having the board of directors for these three institutions of the PIA is commendable. I just wish that the head of those institutions to understand that posterity is calling on them so that we don't go backward. They must institutionalize power of those institutions and not personalize it.
Domestic refining, you talked about that earlier. Gas utilization and regulatory reforms under the PIA, some would say that suggests early progress. But really, the issues I would like you to also help us understand is how this affects market adjustments, competitiveness, and of course, discipline in that industry. We've seen some will say price war. We've seen the back and forth with regards to prices. In some cases, we're buying less than 740 naira, some cases 780 naira. We expected all of this. But how do we manage competitiveness and discipline in the market?
Well, if you look at the definition of competitiveness, it's not necessarily what we call perfect competition. And people must understand the word competition from the market point of view is dealing with the number of participants without a dominant firm. But the structure of the petroleum sector, whether the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream, they are not purely competitive. And that's why the regulator must be vigilant. I've said it over and over again, and that vigilancy must be equivalent to a soccer referee. You could see the Morocco game, and you could see the importance of the referee there. I mean, there are some people alleging that the Ghanaian referee for Morocco and Nigeria shouldn't have been a Ghanaian because we are rivals. But no, that's not the issue. So what I'm saying is that when you talk about competitiveness, we need to understand the market structure that is driving the market. For Nigeria, midstream and downstream, they are oligopoly structures. And that means attention must be paid to the participants. The participants are not doing anything wrong when they want to dominate the market. Then it becomes the responsibility of the regulator to let them know that they are watching them so that they don't dominate the market and begin to influence the pricing of the market. But when you come to the downstream in Nigeria, you will see what I'm saying with crude processing locally. 87% of cooking gas in 2025 is locally supplied. A structural shift. And that's what we're seeing with crude refining. Second, you will see a lot of, because of Dangote, because of LNG, and because of the modular plants that we have in Nigeria, you will see that we are getting foreign exchange savings. And that's one of the reasons why you have a stability in the forex market today, because of this idea of not importing the majority of the final product goods that we have. Second, you can see a supply security. When was the last time people wanted cooking gas and not get it? When was the last time there was a queue for petrol, except, of course, the market distortion of Dangote's selective distribution of retail products? And that's where the regulator must never be afraid to ask questions. It is when you don't answer that you get a sanction. And we see they will always answer. Again, you look at what I call domestic capture, you are now retaining a lot of value. Yes, unemployment is still not where we want it to be, but because of this domestic refining of crude, you will see that the employment within the oil and gas sector has gone up if you look at the statistics. So exporting crude and importing petroleum products is a negative value arbitrage. So we are doing well in that category. So I hope we're not going to go backward.
Now, moving forward and looking at all of these policy issues that we've talked about, analysts and experts are looking forward to production optimization, revenue expansion, and regulatory predictability. Are we seeing all of this in 2026? Do you see quick wins for the Commission, the authority, and of course the larger oil and gas players in that industry? The NNPCL, for some time, we've not heard much from that end. I don't know how you also react to that.
Well, listen, I want to continue to advise the regulators in Nigeria. They cannot deliver the barrel. It's not their responsibility. And they should not use that to gauge their performance. Second, they cannot deliver the revenue. I mean, talking about internet generated revenue should not be the objective of the regulators. The regulators should be looking at stability in rules and regulations. The regulators should be thinking about openness and being open to have conversation with the industry and the players in the industry without being biased. It is not their responsibility to enhance revenue. It is their responsibility to enable the enhancement of revenue because they cannot deliver it. They don't drill well. They don't also take leases. They enable lease allocation competitively. So again, I will continue to encourage the regulators. You don't deliver money. You are an instrument for those who will generate the money to generate the money. And so don't pay attention to that. Look at the effectiveness of your regulation in terms of the number of wells that are drilled, in terms of the number of participants in the industry, in terms of the number of blocks you are able to get out, and in terms of the effectiveness of your regulation. And that's going to be my warning for them. It's just like saying you are going to be measuring referee's behavior in terms of the number of goals when the referee cannot score a goal. Or the number of shutout of the goalkeeper. No, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to make sure that you call the foul when you see a foul, you call a corner kick when you see a corner kick. It's not the number of throws or the number of corner kicks in the game that will determine whether you are effective as a referee. It's the same thing with the regulator. Just do what the PIA say you should do.
Prof,
thank you.
Before we wrap this up, you're in the U.S. and of course you know the geopolitical concerns and all that President Trump has been all about regards to the oil and gas industry. We started with the drill, baby drill, and of course all of this moves to try to create an impact on the larger oil market. What are your thoughts with regards to the price of crude as we move in 2026? Our budget is predicated on about $65.80, around about that, about 1.8 million barrels per day. How feasible is this? And what do you make of the price of crude for the year?
Thank you very much. This is why I've always advised outside the government, don't take what I call a point estimate of the price of oil. That's why we have competent workforce. Allow those young people to use their tools to give you the range of price that you can expect we call it confidence interval. And then you then look at the upper bound and the lower bound instead of using just one price. And then as long as you are in that band, you do not necessarily have to complain. Listen, the price of oil will continue to be stochastic. But in the long run, it is determined by the fundamentals of demand and supply. So whenever you see a price change, you see some determinants that are influencing the direction of the demand or the direction of the supply. So you are going to have shocks in the market, but most of the shocks will be temporary. So don't look at the price at a point in time to panic. Think about, is it within the band that I estimated in my budget year? I'll continue to push. The government must begin to recognize the triple helix Prof's approach to sustainable economic management and development. Don't leave your intellectuals out of your budget process. And I've seen it. I mean, I look at all of these boards that you have. I don't see any intellectual on the board. Not me, not me. There are a lot of people, I can mention their name, that have intellectual framework which will direct the debate in the board. Don't constitute a board, both in the private sector and the public sector, and do not have an intellectual from the academia that will tell you what ought to be at the guidelines for you to make good decisions that is sustainable. So I'm not going to be worried about the up and down in the price because I've looked at that and I'm looking at it. That's what the oil and gas business does. They look at the band in a particular period. As long as the price is not outside that band, we're okay. I know we don't have time, but I thought I need to talk about natural gas and the role of natural gas within the context of energy transition. For Nigeria, natural gas will not be developed to replace oil revenue. Natural gas should be developed to grow Nigeria's domestic economy. And that's the essence of the gas policy. Industrialization, gas to power, net value export. There are decisions that must be optimized, not sacrificing one for the other. But next 2026 is going to be a good year. But the way we measure it is key. I expect to see higher domestic refining output in Nigeria and higher gas utilization to sustain our economic growth. I'm looking forward to reduce import dependency and foreign exchange exposure because of the value chain optimization in the petroleum sector. And I want to continue to see an industry that is governed by rules, not discretion. And the PIA offers the roadmap. The PIA offers the roadmap.
All right then, Professor Iledare, LSU Professor Emeritus of Petroleum Economics, Executive Director, Emmanuel Egboga Foundation. We've heard it from you. The sector is into, there are opportunities, of course, in domestic processing, gas development, but it will depend on clear rules for competition and consistent policy decisions. Thank you so much. Prof, it's always interesting having you join the program, and enjoy the rest of your morning. Thanks for sparing our time.
Thank you. It's about governance, not geology, that will drive our economy. Governance is the key. Thank you for having me.
All right, Prof. Thank you very much. Well, we will continue our conversation now, but shift our focus